They say that the difference between an eccentric and a lunatic is money. Money, power, position. When a famous person wears a belt around their head to go out and party with their entourage, they are trendsetters. If you wear a belt around your head going to your 9-to-5 job, that is a clear sign that you've reached burnout and done lost it. And HR is not interested in your creative side. When a beggar hears voices in his head, he's crazy. We don't even listen to the actual words he says, because we're already trying to get some distance between us and them. But a rich man is inspired by the voices in his head. Also, if he wanted to, he has access to superior medical care. So I think chances are good that when a prominent member of our society claims that they were healed from a lifelong affliction by divine intervention, some of us might believe that. Or just indulge them. But almost no one believed about a blind beggar who was given sight. In today's gospel, Jesus is addressing a group of Pharisees who just saw and heard the testimony of this miraculous healing. They don't believe it. Instead, the Pharisees interrogate the beggar and his parents, and yet they still do not believe what they are told. Oddly enough, they didn't believe their own eyes, that a man who was blind now has sight. They even asked Jesus, "Are you saying we're the blind ones?" Well, yeah. Jesus can tell that he is not getting through to them. So now in our reading today, he switches gears. He uses a figure of speech. He says to them, and by the way, this is not a direct quote, I will paraphrase wildly. Jesus tells the Pharisees, "Yep, you are blind, and therefore, very truly, I tell you, you are not the shepherds of Israel you think you are. You act more like a thief. You are not even a sheep in the good shepherd's flock. Since you could not hear God's voice in the words of a beggar, you also don't know the voice of the good shepherd anywhere else." Interestingly, during that time, great minds like Plato and Aristotle, this metaphor of the good shepherd was used a lot. It was a very popular image describing the obligations of a good leader. Pharaohs and emperors make good use of this image. It was used to highlight their ability to lead their people to green and safe pastures, implying they are divine. And see, the life of an actual shepherd, that was grueling, demanding work, and an awfully low status in society came along with it. The difference? Money, power, position. The Pharisees, for example, have exceptional influence in their society, granting them a superior position. But even so, for those who only fancy themselves to be shepherds leading their flock, Pharisee or not, they cannot know the voice of the Good Shepherd because they don't listen for it. They are too busy being important and all that influencing. They claim they know God's will, all the while never listening for his voice. How deliciously ironic. But how can we listen to God's voice? How can we open our eyes and ears to perceive it? I think we can only do it together. I think we can only do it in community. The Pharisees were not present during the actual healing, but they can see. They can see that the man who was blind now can see. They know this man. And they hear this man describing the miracle that happened to him. They see and they hear. But they ignored their own senses. And so they could not hear God's voice in the poor man's words. Our senses are really incredible. Our bodies were created with love and for love. We experience the world and all that is in it through our senses. We can see each other, listen to each other, and one of the best ways to show love is to just embrace, to hug a loved one. With our bodies, we can see and hear and love the people and the world God created. It is with these same physical senses that we can listen for that voice. In whatever manner we take in God's voice, it is a physical experience as much as a spiritual one. Now, of course, God's words and voice are not in every word or noise around you, but it is always present, hidden in the suddenly deep conversation with a stranger, glowing in the encouraging smile of a friend, teaching us through the wise words of a mentor, pointing us in the right direction by closing a door. The voice of God is with us and around us all our lives. It does not grant money, power, or position. God reminds us now and then in the words of Jesus, and this one I do quote, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly," end quote. Abundant life, he says. Not afterlife, not in the future, not in the hereafter, and not when our loved ones already grieve us, but always and now, on earth as it is in heaven. We are given this life to live it abundantly, and we do that when we listen carefully for God's voice in all his creations, when we remind us over and over and over again to love God and our neighbor with all our hearts and all our minds and all our souls. Amen.